Welcome to the Sensitivity Doctor. This is your host, Dr. Amelia Kelley, and today I had Martin Pytela, a functional medicine expert, on to ask him his opinion on why highly sensitive people are always sick. Yeah, you heard that right. Do you ever notice that if you are more sensitive, you may be more likely to notice things like aches and pains, the impact of unhealthy foods or unhealthy environments? Well, he takes a deep dive into the different types of different body types and how your sensitivity can make it even more likely that you need to get in balance so that you can get well. I hope you enjoyed this episode and get some new ideas of how to treat your own body the best way you can. Well, I'm happy to have you here. I always love when I learn about brand new people and what they're doing in the world. So
Right on.
I would love to hear about your work and who you are, so our audience
Mhm.
can get a little taste of what they're in for today. And I'm really excited because everything health is a huge passion of mine, and especially when we can connect it to the highly sensitive body and nervous system. So I'm really excited to unpack that with you today.
No.
So yeah, do you want to start by just who you are and what got you into your work?
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks for asking. I have been doing health coach work for the last 20 something years, and the last 15 as a metabolic typing advisor, which is something somewhat exotic because in the field that we figure out how genetics and food inputs interact. And with a fairly simple quiz, 120 multiple choice questions, we are able to come back with to the client with essentially a user's manual to the body, where we answer two questions. One is how you gain weight and lose weight, and the other is how you act and acidify and alkalize, which is an interesting thing because that actually controls the autonomic nervous system. The acidity is the fight flight sympathetic side. The alkaline is the parasympathetic, the more relaxed, healing, repairing, sleeping, that sort of thing. So, leading to that, people who have issues with sleep, for example, can't go to sleep. Well, that's because they are stuck in their fight flight side of the autonomic nervous system, or high blood pressure, or, I mean, there are so many issues related to the balance between the two sides of the autonomic nervous system. So, food, or essentially the combinations of foods that you put on your plate, will actually control that.
I am so excited to unpack this with you. I have so many personal questions even about this, just
Sure.
because I'm thinking about things like cravings and what we're drawn to, maybe not aligning with what we actually need. I don't know if we'll get into autoimmunity, but that's peaking
You
up.
can.
And when you said alkali versus acidity, I think that's what you were saying, correct?
Yes. Yeah. The internal
Admitted,
pH.
so admittedly, with all the different things that I've learned about, the body and food, the only time that's popped up that I've really solidly heard about it was, and it sounds funny, but in relation to people who are trying to control what gender of baby they have. Have you heard about this?
Wow. No.
Something about the alkali diet, it can help it be more likely you'll have one versus the other. Okay,
So
you're gonna
interestingly,
have to look it up.
yeah, we'll have to look it up. Well, interestingly, what I've heard is that after a war, men come home weak and exhausted, and women are strong, and they make more boys.
Okay, so maybe there's something to that.
Maybe, but it could be just a folk tale
Fluke.
that doesn't mean nothing. I don't know. I have no idea how to control ahead of time the gender of the child. That
And
I
nor
have
do
not
I
heard of.
believe that this is actually valid. Truly, I haven't seen, solid science on it. It's more anecdotal.
Right.
But I
But I
just
mean,
thought,
yeah,
hmm,
yeah. Let me just try and explain.
yeah,
A,
please.
a fantastic example is when you start serving a group of people carby things. like a cocktail party with alcohol, alcohol being the most popular carb driver. And let's add to it maybe pieces of cake and bread and who knows what else, some hors d'oeuvres kind of thing. And what happens is that the people who we classify as oxidizer are alkalized by fats and proteins. They're acidified by carbs. And the autonomics, the other type, are exactly the opposite. They're actually alkalized by carbs and acidified by fats and proteins.
Okay.
And so as you start serving this alcohol to people, the oxidizers are getting more sympathetic. So first they get more excited, they start speaking louder, faster, and with less caution, they become more abrasive, more argumentative. Then then they get into just no breaks,
Yeah. Go, go.
very um, elbows up kind of thing, just fight mode.
Right.
Rage, road rage, for example, lives in the sympathetic side.
Right. True.
And also, so that would be external expression. Internally, that would be anxiety. So catastrophizing their own future, or maybe reliving their past with, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done this differently. Just not being in the present, being away from now. And interestingly, of course, as the acidity increases with each additional drink, they can go all the way to picking a fight with one another. And they cannot shut it down, cannot go to sleep. If they continue drinking, it's going to be an all-nighter. Just keep going. The other ones, the ones that are being alkalized, first thing that you notice that they're more jovial, they're more friendly, they're just really nice to be around. And then they start oversharing. The the brakes come off and they start saying things that later will regret. And then they start crying about it or about something, just crying about how miserable life is or how such and such, or he left me and she blah blah blah, whatever. Tears. And then deeper in, they just fall asleep because they are now sufficiently alkaline to just shut it down into parasympathetic, and
Right.
they sleep it off.
So can I ask you a question about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if we were all, truly that dichotomous, we would see this so very obviously that we could almost point it out in each other.
Mhm.
And I'm also thinking about what about, external factors like trauma or how stressful your day was or whether or not you're a new mom or, so I assume there's
Absolutely.
some some variability to this based on just what's happening in your life.
Oh, totally. It's not just black and white, it's a big soup. But
Right.
you are definitely affecting the soup with what you're throwing into it.
And I can appreciate that because I can see even when I think about my husband and I, for instance, we are very polar opposite metabolically. We look different, we digest different, we're hungry at different times, we react differently to sugar. I'm probably more acidic, he's probably more alkalized, like when I think about it. And also, if I think about the epigenetics of it, I've mentioned this in previous episodes. I am genetically come from a line of people who were starved in the Ukraine, years ago, and so
Yeah.
those genetics then got passed down, in my opinion, based on science, to me, and the way
Hmm.
that my body handles things like hunger. And
Hmm.
oh, thumbs up. Did you see the thumbs up?
I don't know who threw it in. Are we live somewhere?
No, this is part of. Oh, sorry, Camille. Camille's my producer. I'm gonna see if I can turn it off.
No,
How
that's
do I
fine. I'm
turn that
happy to see
off?
it. Yay, girl, you go.
I know, that's so funny.
Well,
I don't.
here's an interesting sideline from that. Uh,
Mhm.
my mom went through the concentration camp experience
Mm,
on the Ashkenazi Jewish side,
okay.
and so she, one 55 people went in, two came back. She was
Wow.
one of the two. And she, all her life, I knew her as a hypothyroid. I didn't know what to call it then, but looking back, She
And
was
I'm
hypothyroid.
hypothyroidic, which I'm not shocked because of when I look at what I was
That,
talking about.
that's the starvation survivors. They can make it on such tiny amounts of calories because their internal burn rate is so low. So
Right.
that's
Lucky
my
me.
take on that.
I'm like, how
Right.
lucky. So I'm curious because, the idea of toxins in the body, whether it be related to things that we put on our body, things that we eat, things that we're exposed
Right.
to, air quality, just there's so many options when it comes to toxins.
Right.
I'm
Yeah. So
particularly, right. I'm particularly interested in your opinion on sensitive nervous systems and toxins.
mhm,
And what are
mhm.
some of the toxins that you think are the big ones to look out for? And do you, in your opinion, believe that the highly sensitive nervous system or HSPs are more prone to or more sensitive to these toxins based on what you know?
Well, being one of them myself, I
Oh,
can
welcome.
confirm. Right.
Okay.
If the line runs through my family, my daughter got it even more. Um, anyway, as a child, I would be a bowl of strawberries would send me in with a rash of what are they called? Welts.
Ooh.
It's called. There's a name for it. Histadelia. That's what we call it. It's essentially a histaminic reaction in response to something, and of course, histamine being the signaling molecule for excitation. So we are probably either great histamine producers or poor histamine decomposers, or just the total histaminic load is going to be an issue.
Can I pause you on histamines because this is particularly interesting to me when I think about HSPs? There was a time that I was flying somewhere. I'm prone to motion sickness, which is probably not shocking considering my nervous system. And I'm sitting on the plane, I'm scrummaging through my bag, and I realize I forgot my Dramamine. And I start to panic a little, thinking, oh no, I'm going to get sick. Luck be told, the person next to me saw me and chatted a little. I'm normally not much of a chatter on the plane, but I'm glad that we had this moment. And they said something to me about, oh, well, do you happen to have like a first aid kit with you or, just kind of anything? Because you could also take Benadryl. And I was, I just was like, what? What do you mean? They said Dramamine is essentially glorified Benadryl, which I didn't realize. And they're pharmacists. They didn't give
Yep.
me their credentials, but I believed them. And, it's innocuous enough, Benadryl. So I happened to have some and I took it and felt pretty similar to how I do with Dramamine.
Just, yep.
Yeah, and that blew my mind because I was thinking, oh, okay, Dramamine, Benadryl, histamines, stress, motion sickness. So this was just an aha moment. So this
Right.
seems to align with what you're saying.
Precisely that. Yeah. So, well, I guess that's the more sensitive types will be easier to get excited. And what are the excitations signaling molecules? Well, I guess we start from the adrenals, right? Like we'll start pumping more cortisol, we'll start pumping more, um, what is that thing called? Aldosterone, those kind of things. Um, so how do we deal with that? Well, anyway, I started with saying, okay, so more histamine. So there are histamine raising foods or histamine containing foods like chocolate, strawberry, aged meats, salamis, what are they? Fermented foods like sauerkraut. Those are all heavy histamine foods.
My
So
mouth
they
is
will
gaping open a little because some of the things you mentioned are really healthy, though. Healthy, quote unquote.
healthy how?
Doesn't aren't berries anti-angiogenic and they help with inflammation?
Oh, strawberries
Yes,
specifically.
strawberries, strawberries. Yes.
Right. No, they just are high histamine.
Hmm, that's interesting. Maybe
Well, they'll
because of
just push you.
the way they're
I don't
grown.
know.
Yeah.
And guess what, right? Like arousal is a histamine situation, right? Like you can see people who are getting excited, at least some of them, you'll see this redness kind of crawling around the upper chest and in here and cheeks and all of that. Sexual arousal is a histamine situation too.
Oh, that's interesting. So we don't want to
So,
anti that.
we'll give you some chocolate dipped strawberries and we'll raise your excitation level up.
Oh, so would you say, what do they call it when it's something that there's a food that increases arousal? The word is escaping me.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Aphrodisiac.
Oh, that.
Aphrodisiac.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, so there are these levels, right? Stuff that will make you more interested in general
Right.
is different from stuff that makes you excited here on the spot, right? Like we have the heat and then we have the burn, which
Mm.
I don't know. I see it differently from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. I wouldn't say that aphrodisiac and high histamine is one and the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious just because I was
And
speculating.
aphrodisiac to me would be stuff that makes you more prepared to get into it, as in
So in a way,
able
there's some
able to respond.
excitatory. Yeah. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I guess I'm thinking about the idea of like stagnation versus flow of energy. Is there a way to take what you're talking about today and be very purposeful and intentional? For instance, if you're someone who's more prone to, and even if you're okay, I want to be clear, someone who is oxidizing is more stressed.
Okay. Yeah, we're mixing too many things all at the same time.
Okay.
I would say from the perspective of a person who is um, well more sensitive, let's call it that. That was the label you use, right? So uh, those of us are either needing to control the intake of histamines. So these are the histaminic food, like I already listed it, but strawberry chocolate, aged meats, and so on. Eat less of that. Then there are concentrators, like, for example, cinnamon's one of those. So that will help you uh, hold it together. And then there are the inhibitors, right? Uh, what is it called? DAO, diamine oxidase. That would be the thing that will help you decompose the currently circulating histamine. But the bigger picture, right? Like I usually try to systemize things, so I sort it in groups, and I'm talking about toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma, which will be the four pillars on which the entire platform will rise or fall. Like you will most likely be a person with the MTHFR genetics, which will make you a poor methylator, which will make it less easy for you to detoxify things. So you will more likely be, well, prone to um, toxicity. And the worst of it will be the industrial age toxins, which will include heavy metals, plastics, volatile organic compounds. So all of the stuff that comes with food preservatives and colorings and the dry cleaning fluid and the formaldehyde in your furniture and flooring and the gassing off of your automobile dashboard and the plug-in glade that will put out artificial air. I don't know what the
It's pretty
molecules should be
endless.
called. All of that stuff and the dryer sheets and the perfume aisle in the department store.
Oh my gosh. So how
Uh,
does someone live? Like, what would you recommend someone do other than cocooning themselves in a bubble?
no, lower the threshold, right? The platform rises or falls with how heavy you load it. So get the heavy metals out of you because with that you are always making yourself more sensitive. So
How do you
this
do
would be
that? How does someone get
mercury,
heavy metals
yeah,
out?
yeah, mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, that sort of thing. What worked for me really well was it's called zeolite, cleanuptililite, which these days it's available in liquid or capsules or powder. You can get your hands on that. I mean, myself, I got really sick from mercury toxicity. Myself, I got it from a dentist. I ended
Oh
up with
gosh.
just an innocent choice. I don't know. To this day, they are still willing to put in mercury amalgam or silver mercury amalgam fillings. And for me, that was a terrible experience because I was perfectly fine at 24 and I was seriously ill a year later because I got some dental work done and I really went to pieces.
Oh
I mean,
man.
the story goes something like uh, first I got carpal tunnel syndrome, then plantar fasciitis, then my back went to hell, then I started getting migraines, then allergies kicked in, then my herpes flared out, then blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can just stack it up. No, periodontal problem came with that. A lot of issues I started breaking down at the hands of this rising tide of toxicity that was being released into my body from the fillings that they gave me.
So you were getting not only toxic trauma, but also trauma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, medical trauma, I think that's something a lot of people don't generally consider or give enough space to, is that it can create, holding patterns in the body, reactions, some PTSD symptoms even, depending on what the medical trauma is. So I'm sorry you had to go through that. That sounds stressful.
If it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger.
Or make you interested in studying it and then you help other people.
Precisely. I wouldn't be here if it were not for that.
And I'm curious because, something as traumatic as poisoning from a dental procedure is one extreme, but all of us walking around may not be aware that what we're eating or putting on our body may be increasing those metals and increasing those toxins. What do you think is for someone listening who this is new to them? And I will say, and I've spoken before on other episodes about how my interest in trauma kind of not only came from generational trauma, but it also came from a fertility journey that I went through. And in that journey, I did a lot of research into toxins and I got full bore. I mean, I was changing everything in our house, from what we were drinking, how we were dressing, what we were putting in our body. I remember getting like a little blanket to put over me if I was using a computer that had different wave frequencies. I mean, it got wild because you're like, oh, there's something to that. Um,
Oh, very
and
much so.
and I can't say that's what helped me finally have a healthy pregnancy, but I did after doing all that. So, there's something to that. So
Well, let
aside,
me let me just to dive into seven angles of what you just talked about.
please go for it.
So, for example, I was talking to my daughter when she was getting ready to be pregnant, and I'm telling her, look, your dominance is thyroid dominance. By the way, the four dominances, they should be on the table here: thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, or ovarian. In women,
Oh,
men don't
okay.
get that, but women can.
Right.
And the thyroid dominant people tend to be the ones that end up with weight problems. They are gaining weight with carbs and losing weight with fats.
And can I
So
ask
they're
you
the
really
ones,
quickly, when you say dominant, do you mean that there's like an excess of energy or an irregulation in that area? Like, what do you mean by
probably.
dominance?
Right. Well, I guess those are labels. I believe that well, we all have all those glands, but some
Right.
are stronger than others in this configuration of genetics. A thyroid dominant person will grow up with slender wrists, slender ankles, so dainty limbs. They will be, well, every Victoria's Secret model is a thyroid type.
Okay. Hmm.
Um,
We've
they
diagnosed
tend
them
to,
all.
the adrenal types look different. They are built stocky. Their ankles are strong, big. They will have deeper chests and all of that. I'm thinking a gymnast like Simone Biles or Sean Johnson,
Okay.
built like this, as opposed to this slender type.
Okay.
Anyway, the main point of that being is that the thyroid dominant people tend to need more iodine because their body requires it. And it's usually like 100x, not just a little bit. And they will be tending, if they're underdosing themselves with iodine, they will be um, prone to miscarriage, prone to low birth weight baby. The intelligence of the baby will be affected. And that's just on the pregnancy side. Um, they will be cold in the, cold in the evening, unable to keep themselves warm, scant perspiration, gaining weight on the belly, so the sort of a fat pad in the front. That's the thyroid type. Right?
Right.
Anyway, so I'm telling her, look, you need to get detoxed, get all the heavy metals out of you. So we put her on zeolite, and I said, just get on iodine. That's going to be big. And then the third thing is you're not going to do well with grains. So get yourself off of wheat.
Wait, not
Wheat,
going to do well
corn,
with
forget
what?
about it. Grains,
Oh,
wheat, corn.
grains and wheat.
Yeah,
Okay.
wheat and corn, get it out of your diet. And she was pregnant on her next period after she said, okay, let's do it. Right. And so then she became a advisor to her girlfriends who were struggling with
Mm.
getting pregnant. And it was, well, you need to lower the inflammation level from your body before you can actually get the egg to implant. You may have all kinds of fertilizations, but you will not retain it if you are inflamed.
So the supplement that you were talking about is what you would most recommend. How do you spell it?
Zeolite, that's Zeolite.
Okay. That's what you would most recommend. And by the way, we're just talking about opinions, folks. This is not, a medical recommendation to go out and do
Yeah, no.
anything that we're talking about. Please check in with your doctor.
Yeah, I'm
But
not trying to diagnose anyone here. It's just what I've done, and I'm telling you a
right,
story.
it's what you know works from your experience for sure.
No.
Other than that, are there other things that people can do to dramatically detox their body without causing potential harm? Because I'm always concerned about people going to the extreme with something.
Well, so to reassure the public about zeolite, it's a binder. It's an electronegative mineral that has these multiple little sites that are electronegative. So electropositive molecules will be attracted into it. So in a sense, it's a lot like EDTA, except it's much more discerning because it will only trap the very large molecules. So the heavy metals like the mercury and lead and whatnot, those are the ones that will get trapped rather than the other electropositive molecules like calcium, magnesium, and other minerals. So it's less troublesome than EDTA that you definitely want to do with medical supervision.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
other than taking a supplement like that, what would you say are, maybe your top three things you hope people do to help with toxicity, move stagnant energy, or get that flow
Mhm.
going for your four pillars that you were talking about?
Right, right. Well, so the first we start with the never do this. Never eat refined sugar, refined flour, refined salt, refined plant seed oils,
Okay.
and pasteurized, homogenized Western Northern cow dairy.
Okay. So basically eat
Those
things in its pure form.
those are the yeah, right. Yeah, you can certainly eat organic of that, but I don't think that there's an intelligent way of eating seed oils. I think fruit oils are a much better choice. Those would be olive oil, avocado, coconut, palm, butter. Clarified butter is perfectly fine. But I see just a
Right.
lot of problems with people and inflammation when they are ingesting the plant seed oils like cottonseed and safflower, corn oil, those type of things. They don't do anybody any good.
What do you think about, have you heard of Brian Johnson?
Tell me about what he says.
He is, I want to say he used to own Venmo and sold it, something like that. So he has boatloads of money and I think he's 47 and he has dedicated his entire fortune and life
Okay, yeah,
to not dying.
I'm
Yeah.
remembering I watched an entire 2 hour episode of him explaining himself and telling about his lifestyle
I mean,
and how he does.
he's a very interesting person and I know one
Hmm.
of the things that he does religiously is drink a shot of olive oil, I think, with every meal or something like that.
Right. Yeah, olive oil, not cottonseed oil.
No, but do you think there's actual validity to that?
Well, so let's explain the metabolic dominances again. Adrenal, thyroid, pituitary, and the last one was ovarian. So the thyroid type needs to have more fats to stay slim and will gain weight on carbs, period.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the other hand, the adrenal types, they will be tempted not by starchy things, but instead by savory things. And they will be gaining weight on a keto diet, whereas the thyroid type will be losing weight on a keto diet. So that's one.
Right.
If he were not the thyroid type, and he looks like one, he would be having to be eating a very different diet. And if you mess up your diet against your genetics, your heritage, you're not going to have the results. And this is where the mainstream whole public discourse is really messed up because they want to have everyone responding the same way.
Right, which
Doesn't
is
work
not
like that.
possible. Mm-hmm.
And so some of us will gain weight on the keto diet. Those are the adrenal types. Others will get slimmer. Those are the thyroid types, as an example. However, if you're the oxidizer, which you are getting agitated by pushing carbs. You'll be you'll be less agreeable. Let's call it bitchy if you overdo your carbs.
I'm going with it. I'm going with it.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Well, I do know I don't feel satisfied or level after say a pasta dinner, but if I have like I mean pasta's delicious. So if I'm going to have, like we'll make handmade pasta with our kids. I'm not going to miss out. I'll have a little bit of it and then I'll have a nice big salad and then maybe some like nuts and avocado on it. It's like I feel it that if I just sit and eat that pasta, it's just going to make me feel almost depressed in a way. I don't it definitely doesn't respond well for
Okay.
me.
All right. Well, depressed is an alkaline state, so I don't want to classify and type you before I get more data points.
Yeah.
But the point would be this: an oxidizer will be well, thyroid type oxidizer will be happy and slim eating a keto diet.
Okay.
But that would be the fast oxidizer. But
Right.
a slow oxidizer on a keto diet, not that be still fine. No, not fine. Depressed and skinny.
Okay. I think I probably fall more in that range. I think I'd be depressed and skinny if on a full keto diet. But
Right.
I think times where I've found like a good rhythm for myself, but I'm saying
Right.
I can definitely tell a difference in I think when you're used to doing something and you're pulled out of your norm, and I think this is something that speaks to highly sensitives, especially if
Right.
we're used to something and we're pulled out of our norm, say on vacation or holidays or
Mm.
things, a particularly busy week, and you're not able to stick to your norm, you can really feel it. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that is unique for highly sensitives. And it makes me wonder when you think about people listening, I would imagine might be listening thinking, okay, well, what am I? How do I tell of the four? I'm almost envisioning like four boxes. Like, how do we tell? I know you're saying we've got the thyroid type, which tends to be a bit more, I don't want to say frail, but, kind of, a thinner composure.
Yep. Yeah. Willowy. It's the
Okay.
quarterback on the team, not the linebacker.
Okay. Okay. And then you've got the adrenal types, which we're channeling Simone Biles' energy for that. The
Hmm.
ovarian type, And
Yeah, the
the
ovarian types are only in women, and the estrogen production of the ovaries is stimulated by hot, is in spicy. And
okay.
so you will find women who are just the most capable eaters of hot food, like Thai and Sichuan, and give it to me with five red hot chilies, they'll
Uh-huh.
go for it.
Uh-huh. I love
And what
spicy
that
food, but
does, it drives the estrogen production, so they will have accentuated feminine characteristics. So classically, they'll be size 2 from waist up and size 6 from waist down. The
okay.
Kardashians are doing it surgically, but it's there's a natural way.
I love all the random people coming up today. And then what about was the fourth one pituitary?
Yeah, that was pituitary. That's
Okay.
the kapha from the Indian doshas. It's the nerdy type. The head a little larger than you would expect. Hair probably curly. Um, Fat distribution on the body is even, sort of like a Cabbage Patch doll or Pillsbury Doughboy. It's usually the intellectuals, the nerdy types. Their temptation food would be creamy, like yogurts and whipping cream and ice cream. And their health food is high purine, the uh, the organ meats like tongue, heart, kidney, lungs, all of that
So what if
organ
you
meats.
hear a little bit of all of them that apply to you? How do you organize that? Because as I'm
All of it
listening to
applies.
you, right, every single one you're saying, there's little bits that I'm like, oh, that's kind of me, and oh, that's a little bit of me, you know.
Yeah, yeah. All of it applies to all of us. You have all those glands, you have all those organs, you have all of that. But if you can visualize like a space that's
Right.
there where you would like to be somewhere in the middle, but you may have genetics that put you into any one of those corners,
Okay.
which would be li- more limiting to your choices, right? Like in the middle, you have lots of choices. If you're in one of the corners, you have fewer choices. Like, say, a parasympathetic dominant is a person who will get depressed on carbs and will be lazy unless eating sufficient amount of fat. All right. So,
Okay.
um, and if we combine that with being a thyroid type, now we're going to have a balance. If we make it adrenal, we're going to make it more difficult because
Okay.
well anyway. So those are the choices. Now you were interested in the sensitive, right? So that would be let's take this picture, tilt it, and how high is it? I talked to some people and I asked them, so what happens when you eat a banana? And they say, well, nothing. And so I say, well, okay, when you take 2 shots of olive oil, what happens? Nothing. They're not sensitive. They are sort of like a sumo wrestler standing center of gravity down, wide stance. I can push on them with all my might and I'm not pushing them over. Whereas somebody more sensitive, that's more like standing on one foot with eyes closed, it will take me more than one finger push to get out of balance. And that's, I think, would be us, the sensitive ones, where we don't last as long. We need to take rests between physical exertions.
Or
We need
mental
to,
exertion too.
sure,
I think,
right.
and it's interesting when I think about the banana, my first thought was, well, I'm fine if I add a peanut butter and chia seed to
And see,
it.
now you're combining foods, right? There's a carb and a protein with it, right? A potato with a bunch of sour cream or butter and bacon bits on top of it. A slice of bread with butter and salami, whatever, right? Like all of the combinations that you have seen are usually put together. The extreme push would be start with a bowl of oatmeal porridge with a glass of orange juice and sliced banana or blueberries on top.
Oh
Now
my
you're
gosh.
now you're doing a carbo push.
Yeah, I would not feel good off that. And now that I think about it, I don't think I would feel depressed. I think I would feel kind of like keyed up if I had all that in the morning. Um,
That's what I was expecting.
yeah, yeah. I think when I was thinking of the more depressed feeling of of the pasta. It was more related to fullness and less related
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
actual physical or
Right.
emotional sensation. So I'm
Yeah.
going to
Well, I
throw
would.
something. I want to throw something at you now that I have your
Sure.
ear. I know we have to wrap up soon, but this is something I'm very curious about. I used to be a meat eater, but I was never a very enthusiastic meat eater. I really
Mhm.
have never liked it my whole life. I was
Right.
someone who chronically got ear infections and strep throat. I was on antibiotics a lot as a kid. Lo and behold, I was allergic to cats, which I lived with, so that didn't help. But I digress. Years later, I think it's probably 15 years now. I was reading a book. There was a section about slaughterhouses. P.S. This is not a PSA for people to stop eating meat. This is just my own journey. Everyone has their own, preferences, but I was reading something about slaughterhouses. I got really emotional. I talked to my then fiance, now husband, about it. And he said, well, if it bothers you so much, and P.S., he's a meat eater. He said, if it bothers you so much, why don't you just not eat it then? And it was like this light bulb moment. Oh, I don't have to. Okay. So I stopped eating it for me for emotional, moral reasons. But something really wild happened. I haven't been, aside from, like the occasional surgery or something, I haven't been on an antibiotic in 15 years. And knock on wood, to this date, I haven't caught COVID. I haven't, like, I don't really, oh my gosh,
Right.
I'm totally going to be throwing myself under the bus. I bet I'm going to get sick after saying this, but I don't really get viruses anymore. Even when my kids get sick, I don't really contract them. And the
All right.
only thing I can match it up to is when I got the meat out of my diet, and that probably increased my vegetable load too. So, what do you think about that? Because I have no answer to that, but I
Do you
like
know
the
your
results.
Do you know your blood type?
I believe it's O.
All right. Interesting. Well, anyway, so the
Maybe
story will
AB. I
be.
don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what my blood
Well,
type
I'm
is.
an AB, so there's a lovely book by Peter Diademo that says "Eat Right for Your Blood Type," and in that book he
It might
reveals
be
that
AB. When I'm reflecting back on blood work, it might be AB now that I'm thinking about it.
that depending on your blood type, you will be not good at digesting certain things.
Right.
So that's one. The adrenal type
Mm-hmm.
is much more prepared to eat meats than the thyroid type. And the
Okay.
thyroid type should probably eat fish, especially the white
I
fish, the
do
river
eat
fish.
fish. I am pescatarian, so I do eat fish.
Uh-huh. So you're not anti-killing things, you're just anti-red meat,
I'm anti anything that has fur or feathers. Like,
which is very intelligent for your endocrine dominance because
mm,
the thyroid types do best on the lightest of proteins. So fish,
interesting.
especially lake fish, river fish, and the lighter fish, not
Which
the
is my
sardine and
preference.
not the anchovy.
I don't like
Uh,
those at all. I don't like
no,
them.
of course not. Those are for the other people. Those the high purine is for the pituitary duct.
Okay.
The adrenals are somewhere in the middle. They're the hunters. They do awesomely well on red meat. For you, occasionally. But if you eat it a lot as a thyroid type, you're going to push yourself toward the gout because you don't do well with red meat.
Yeah, I never did. I never liked it. And I think in a way this is kind of a testament to one of the strengths of highly sensitive people. If you stop and listen to yourself and you really check in with your reactions and your
Right.
preferences and you just let yourself connect with your gut. And I don't just mean from a gut level, but I mean an intuitive level. I feel like our bodies sometimes are telling us what we need and what
Absolutely.
we don't.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you will know. So again, to sum up, yes, you are eating correctly to your type because you do have the physical appearance of a thyroid type, and everything you said about it looks like
Right,
that. That's what you
right.
are. So
Hmm.
stay in that lane. Do not try to make yourself what you're not.
Yeah, no red meat for me.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
For me, I can eat it, but probably once a month. That's that's about my, you know, and And I don't have to. It's just like we're out somewhere and all there is steak. Okay, I'll eat it, but I don't really need to or desire it or whatever.
Right.
Like that.
Right. Well,
Being a
gosh,
thyroid type too.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Martin, I've loved this conversation because I think that you took something that is so wide and were able to distill it into something that it felt really personal. I almost feel like I got to have a little session with you. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I'm curious for anyone who's listening who has their curiosity piqued. They want to know what types they are, or they want to know what they should be eating or what they shouldn't, what they should be taking out of their environment. How can they work with you or learn from you or gain some resources?
Yeah. The the website that I operate from is called Life Enthusiast. And it's life-enthusiast.com. You will find the metabolic typing test there if you want to take a shortcut. Or you can just learn it one piece at a time and do a self-assessment. It's doable. You can figure it out on your own. You don't need me. I'll just help you get there faster. And once you know it, it's just like having a user's manual in your hand. I will tell you, well, if you pull on this, such and such will happen predictably. So that's the story. We manufacture our own superfoods too. So we have high density nutrition, and we have all these tools that help you with the toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. Those resources are there. We'll offer you guidance. It's all essentially nutritional. That's the main avenue that we do it through.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I love a good conversation where I learned something, and I definitely did today. So thank you
Great.
again, Martin, and hopefully everyone enjoyed what they heard and get to learn a little bit more about your bodies. Be well, everyone.
Thanks a million.